Only then can we execute the decapitation strike. Is that clear? Yes. John Lin saluted, reassuring Lu Wen that there was still time before the target departed, more than enough for their investigation. Before Jiang Yi could confirm the intelligence, some information had already leaked. This information indicated to John Lin that Yaman's internal security protocols for information confidentiality were apparently not as stringent as they should be. Otherwise, news of Yaman's visit to the Dragon Nation wouldn't have been leaked prematurely without official acknowledgement. Under these circumstances, obtaining Jiang Yi's flight itinerary posed no challenge for Mossad's intelligence capabilities. As one of the world's top intelligence agencies, John Lin believed they possessed the capability. They launched a covert investigation. As expected, by the third day, they obtained an internal flight schedule. After 2 more days of verification, Mossad intelligence ultimately confirmed that this flight path was precisely the air route Jiang Yi would take. Well done, John Lin. Lu Wen immediately shared the flight path map with Lighthouse Nation. The Lighthouse Nation's high command was just as excited as Lu Wen. Excellent. This time, they're finished. Finally, we can eliminate that cancer, Zhongdong. Once he's gone, everything else will fall into place. Zhongdong is still ours. Prepare the decapitation plan immediately. This mission must succeed. Failure is not an option. The decapitation operations conducted by Lighthouse Nation over the years boast a success rate exceeding 85%. In the eyes of many, Jiang Yi was facing certain death this time. Obama frowned deeply, sensing something amiss. But in the end, he said nothing. The decapitation operation was set in motion. No one knew that Yisili had obtained the intelligence the leaked flight path diagram was actually Jiang Yi's doing. It was Jiang Yi's deliberate arrangement. The flight path wasn't fake either, it was indeed Jiang Yi's scheduled route for his upcoming visit to the Dragon Nation. Jiang Yi was eager to see if Yisili and the Lighthouse Nation would dare to show up. Time flew by. Jiang Yi selected 3 senior officials, Alpha, Maxon, and Henry, to accompany him on the journey. As for the domestic affairs, Charles would temporarily take charge. Jiang Yi granted Charles the position of acting king with extensive authority. For those rewarded by the system would never betray him. Jiang Yi had no lingering concerns. Alpha, Max, and Henry each brought their most capable subordinates. Including Jiang Yi, the delegation's core members numbered 43. 6:30 a.m. After Jiang Yi completed a wave of infrastructure construction within the domestic system, the passenger aircraft took off in real time from Yaman territory. Shortly thereafter, it departed Yaman's airspace. Through the aircraft window, Jiang Yi watched the scenery of Yemen's territory unfold on the screen. The central urban area was already quite well developed. Only areas farther from the city center still lacked a certain flavor. But there was no rush. There was plenty of time to gradually expand the development. Jiang Yi called Longwei to inform him that they had taken off. They established a real-time connection to ensure Longwei could respond immediately if any issues arose. Alpha, do you think they'll come? I think it's highly likely they'll make a move. Alpha paused briefly to consider. They've finally seized this opportunity, they'll likely come. The only question is how far they'll take it. Will they just send people to cause minor disruptions? Or have they resolved to kill, determined to eliminate them today? That was anyone's guess. Jiang Yi wore a faint, ambiguous smile. He crossed his legs, his gaze sweeping over the scenery below. At that moment, Henry brought Jiang Yi a glass of red wine, poured it, and Jiang Yi took the glass, swirling it in his hand. He took a sip. For some reason, amidst this calm, he sensed a hint of uneasy, murderous intent. Our forces are rapidly closing in on the target. Rapidly closing in on the target. At the same time, over 30 fighter jets were streaking across the high skies. Good. Remember not to be detected. Once the target enters attack range, don't hesitate, shoot it down immediately. Isa Lai. A certain command center. John Lin communicated in real time with the pilots via the intercom. Over 30 of the Lighthouse Nation's newest fighter jets. Each fighter was fully loaded with munitions. This scale of deployment was enough to make most nations worldwide, save for the 5 major powers, tremble in fear. Never mind taking out a single leader. Even bringing half a city to its knees would be no trouble at all. John Lin refused to believe they could fail this time. Unless Jiang Yi was a god, he wouldn't escape unscathed. Meanwhile, Yisili High Council Chamber. The Black House of the Lighthouse Nation. Nearly all high-ranking officials from both nations were present. Everyone wore solemn expressions, their faces tense. On the large screen beside them played various simulated combat scenarios and strategic projections they had previously conducted. Today was destined to be a historic moment for them, whether they could eliminate Jiang Yi and reclaim sovereignty. All eyes are on what happens next. Everyone was on edge, constantly praying to their god, desperate for Operation Decapitation to succeed. At that moment, a report came in from the front lines. Report. We have successfully reached the vicinity of the flight path. The target is about to enter the attack range. About to enter the attack range. It's coming. Parts of both Yisili and the Lighthouse Nation were nearly in their throats. Some high-ranking officials were practically leaning into the screens to watch. The enemy has yet to detect our presence. So far, so good. Excellent. Stay alert, this mission must succeed. Failure is not an option. Obama's voice trembled as he issued the final order. So, it finally came, did it? Jiang Yi stared at the radar display, a mocking smile suddenly spreading across his face. Not detected? What a joke. The radar detection range of the Wind Shadow fighter exceeded 1,000 kilometers. Any so-called stealth capabilities were utterly useless against this radar. Jiang Yi not only spotted them but had locked onto their position long ago. Alpha wasted no words, issuing combat orders. Get ready. Give them a little shock. Lighthouse Nation. What? No fighter escort? All high-ranking officials received news that stunned them. Jiang Yi is actually sailing solo, with no escort whatsoever. What does that mean? The passenger plane Jiang Yi was piloting was now a sitting duck for them. Something's wrong, something's very wrong. Obama thought it through and felt a chill run down his spine. Jiang Yi couldn't possibly be that bold. He recalled the previous engagements. Their fighter jets had been taken out before they even spotted the enemy. Therefore, Obama and all the high-ranking officials present saw their pupils contract sharply. Trouble. Be careful. Everyone, be extremely careful. Chapter 105, A Cliffhanger Lead. Over 30 fighter pilots instantly became hyper-alert. They continuously activated their radar scans. But the radar remained silent. They split into groups, dispersed their formation, and sought ways to attack from the flanks. The fighter squadron dispersed in the sky. Obama and the others felt their heart rates soaring toward 200 beats per minute. At the founding ceremony, after the F-35 was shot down by the Yamen Kingdom, they realized the key to their defeat was the radar system. They couldn't detect the enemy. This time, they deliberately enhanced their radar capabilities. They deployed the latest model never before disclosed to the outside world by the Lighthouse Nation. After all, what country doesn't have some hidden technology? Not only the Lighthouse Nation, but the Dragon Nation too, and the Big Goose likely has it as well. Yet, the fact that even the upgraded version couldn't be detected is downright terrifying. Or is it that Jiang Yi is just that reckless, so wildly unguarded that he truly has no backup? With a heavy heart, the Lighthouse Nation's high command could only continue directing the battle, no turning back once the arrow was released. At this point, regret was too late. This battle must be fought, come hell or high water. The fighter jet sped past, the distance between the two sides closing at a visible pace. Yet, still no enemy escort aircraft detected. Excellent. No escort at all? Aoba and his men were overjoyed. Jiang Yi was truly reckless. He actually came without any escort at all. Did he really think they wouldn't dare to act? Then victory is assured this time. Obama exhaled a heavy breath and ordered, "Shoot him down. Shoot him down." Everyone's eyes burned with intensity. They had waited far too long for this moment. The thought of witnessing their long-awaited revenge filled them with uncontrollable excitement. Obama clenched his fists. Jiang Yi, oh Jiang Yi. You are intelligent, you are capable. But alas, even the most capable can falter. Today truly exemplifies what it means to make one fatal mistake that haunts you forever. Alpha glanced at his wristwatch. He turned to look at Jiang Yi. Your Majesty, it's about time. What do you say? Let's proceed. And take your time, no need to rush. This journey has been tediously dull. Perfect, just the thing to pass the time. Jiang Yi commanded several drones to take flight, heading toward the positions of all the F-35s. For no other reason than to record combat footage. At 6 o'clock, an F-35's fire control radar locked onto Jiang Yi's passenger jet. The pilot couldn't wait to press the launch button. To eliminate Jiang Yi during this mission would be no small achievement. He would surely be commended upon returning. He was already dreaming of promotions and riches. However, ZZZ. After pressing the launch button, there was no response. Instead, the electronic display before him flickered with continuous arcs of electricity. Wang Difu? The driver instantly questioned his existence. Soon, white smoke billowed from the entire electronic control panel, sparks flew from within, and finally with a loud bang, the entire console exploded. Yes. The fighter jet became completely inoperable, crashing out of control at hypersonic speeds. Immediately after, the cabin began to rupture. Violent air currents surged in, making it hard to breathe and blurring his vision. In desperation, the pilot pressed the ejection button with a terrified expression, but it too offered no response. The entire fighter jet had failed. In that instant, his brain froze. The centrifugal force from the hyperspeed descent caused a single word to flash through his mind before he lost consciousness completely. Electromagnetic pulse. Nice. Facing over 30 enemy fighters, Jiang Yi had deployed over 30 drones. Watching the real-time footage transmitted by the drone, Jiang Yi couldn't help but clap in admiration. What had just unfolded was indeed an electromagnetic pulse cannon. Jiang Yi had only seen descriptions of this weapon before, knowing it could instantly destroy all enemy electronic equipment. He never imagined it would be this devastating. This was without Jiang Yi holding back, otherwise it could have disabled over 30 fighter jets simultaneously, setting off fireworks in the sky. Ha! Alpha chuckled. I bet those guys' expressions right now are absolutely priceless. He wasn't referring to anyone else, specifically the Lighthouse Nation and Yisili. Silence. The entire Black Palace fell into a deathly silence as the first F-35 plummeted to its doom. Dead silent. A terrifying silence. They hadn't even realized what had happened. How had one of their own fighters been shot down? Obama roared like a madman. What the hell is going on? Why the failure now? You need to give me an explanation. Present were only high-ranking officials and a few core technical personnel present. Without expert explanation, they couldn't comprehend the intricacies of this high-tech combat. A trembling researcher in a white lab coat stammered, "President Obama, the fighter jet couldn't have malfunctioned. We likely encountered an electronic attack just now." The speaker was no minor figure. Bertrand Hubert. He was one of the United States' top aviation experts, among the most authoritative in the world. He also served as the director of development for the F-35. Numerous classified research projects in the Lighthouse Nation. He is one of the core figures in the Lighthouse Nation's research and development sector. He is one of the core figures in the Lighthouse Nation's scientific research sector. Electronic attack? Obama was completely baffled. This is a weapon that targets electronic devices exclusively. I suspect it's an electromagnetic pulse cannon or similar. But the fact that they can launch such attacks silently suggests their EMP technology has reached terrifying levels of advancement. Bertrand Hubert nervously swallowed. Electromagnetic pulses. A field the entire world is striving to overcome because modern technology. We're practically inseparable from electronics. EMP weapons are the bane of all electronic devices. But due to their complex technology and high difficulty level, many nations have pursued research, yet after all these years, the results remain underwhelming. Even the United States, which dominates the global technology landscape, has made little progress in electromagnetic pulse technology. And now, you're telling me that the Kingdom of Yemen has already advanced this level of technology to such an extent? They didn't even realize when the attack was launched. Goosebumps erupted all over Bertram Hubert's skin. It was unimaginable what kind of team the Yemen Kingdom. What kind of team must they have to achieve technological development at this level? This wasn't merely a matter of being ahead. While other nations are still in the early stages of developing electromagnetic pulses, yet the Kingdom of Yemen has already mastered it to perfection. This is a cliff-edge lead. A lead so vast it's downright despairing. Obama was stunned. Suddenly grasping the gravity of the situation, his lips turned pale and his arms slumped limply. But for Zhang Yi, the real show was just beginning. After testing the electromagnetic pulse, what's next? Why not go straight for the anti-aircraft missiles? Chapter 106, The Lighthouse Nation's Fighter Jet's Last Stand. Anti-aircraft missiles. Full name, Anti-Air Countermeasure Missile. Zhang Yi learned that this was also a unique technological product exclusive to the Fengying fighter. Its power and precision far surpassed world-class standards. It must be said, the Lighthouse Nation and the Icelians were quite accommodating. Upon learning Zhang Yi had developed a new fighter jet, they even sent personnel specifically to assist with testing. How embarrassing. Boom! A Fengying fighter jet streaked toward an F-35 at breakneck speed, firing several anti-aircraft countermeasure missiles at the enemy's tail section. The F-35 pilot's pupils contracted violently, shrinking to pinpricks in an instant. Good news. The enemy fighter they hadn't detected was finally spotted. Bad news. The radar still showed no response. It was spotted with the naked eye. He prepared to dive the fighter to evade the incoming missile. But he completely overestimated the F-35's maneuverability. As soon as he initiated the emergency turn, the airframe began violently shaking mid-air, followed by a loss of control. This caused the missile launched by the Fengying fighter jet missed its target, and the F-35 began plummeting toward the ground. The missile whizzed past him. Of course, it couldn't end there. After traveling several kilometers, the missile abruptly executed a high-speed turn. Even as it spun out of control and neared the ground, its tracking system remained firmly locked onto its target. Ultimately, the missile caught up with the F-35 at an altitude of several thousand meters and obliterated it into fragments. Boom! A dazzling fireball erupted in the sky, billowing thick smoke. From Zhang Yi's vantage point aboard the passenger jet, the spectacle was breathtaking. Just minutes earlier, Zhang Yi could no longer hold back and activated the descent function. At that moment, he was sipping red wine while watching the breathtaking spectacle unfold. This world-class aerial combat would soon shock the entire globe. Not witnessing it firsthand, it would be a real shame. Is this what they call the world's most advanced fighter jet? Alpha sneered, turning to Zhang Yi. Leader, I never imagined your latest fighter prototype would be this formidable. The best is yet to come. Zhang Yi set down his wineglass, and the beautiful attendant beside him promptly refilled it. Lighthouse Nation. The destruction of yet another F-35 was driving them mad. They wanted to slap themselves hard. Wake up! Then someone tells them it was all just a dream. Mr. President, distinguished members of Congress, I must insist we withdraw. This battle cannot be sustained. Continuing will only bring greater losses. The commander of the Lighthouse Nation Air Force could no longer sit still. The gap was too vast. He had come to realize their chances of victory in this air battle were infinitesimally close to zero. How can we fight when we can't even detect enemy aircraft? Instead, the enemy. We could lock onto them with ease. If that Wind Shadow fighter hadn't revealed itself earlier, they'd still be clueless, not knowing where the enemy was. No! Havid's eyes blazed crimson as he roared, we've come this far, retreat is out of the question. Where would our honor lie? Even if every one of our 30-plus fighters goes down here today, I'll take the King of Yemen's life. This battle has begun. It can't be covered up. It will inevitably draw global attention, the eyes of the world upon us. If they lose, how will the world view them? How can the myth of the Lighthouse Nation's invincibility be sustained? Credibility is lost. What will sustain the Lighthouse Nation's global hegemony in the future? From the outset, he saw no room for retreat or surrender in this battle. It must be fought to the bitter end. As the saying goes, better to endure a short pain than a long one. Eliminating Jiang Yi once and for all, removing the threat permanently, is far better than allowing him to remain a constant distraction. Even if it meant sacrificing everything. But there are no buts. Hayward shot him a glare, and the Air Force commander immediately shut his mouth. The atmosphere throughout the Black Palace suddenly turned strange. Everyone knew Hayward had likely lost his mind and made a foolish choice. Yet no one spoke up to stop him. They all chose to tacitly accept Hayward's actions. The reason was simple. As high-ranking officials of the Lighthouse Nation, their decisions routinely shape the world. Each was accustomed to being arrogant and self-important. Yet here, they kept getting humiliated by Jiang Yi. Now their prized F-35s were being thoroughly outmaneuvered. With so many people involved, who could claim to remain completely rational? All have been clouded by hatred and rage. On Jiang Yi's side, the aerial battle raged on. The F-35 fighter squadron abruptly altered course, intending to temporarily withdraw and expand their operational radius. This maneuver would afford them greater maneuverability and operational space. Noticing their intent, Jiang Yi immediately ordered 10 Typhoon Shadow fighters to pursue in waves. Inside the cockpit of one F-35, the pilot steered the fighter as the landscape outside the window receded at breakneck speed. The supersonic shockwave generated by the fighter's speed shattered the clouds, unleashing a deafening sonic boom. At that very moment, damn it! The fighter pilot's expression turned as if he'd seen a ghost. Suddenly, a foaming fighter jet rapidly closed in on him, the two aircraft coming dangerously close, almost touching. Flying at such speeds at high altitude was a suicidal act. Because if either pilot made a single mistake, a collision at that altitude and speed would be an impact force no one could survive. Only destruction and death would remain. Madman! Madman! The F-35 pilot cursed furiously, trying to pull away, but he realized with horror that the foaming fighter's speed was far beyond his own. Even at full throttle, he couldn't shake it off. Instead, the enemy stayed glued to his front, maintaining a parallel flight path. In the eyes of a fighter pilot, it was a provocation. Blatant provocation. The enemy clearly didn't regard him as a worthy opponent. Gritting his teeth, he fired several missiles at the target, attempting to intercept it. The Korean fighter executed an aerial turn. The missiles whizzed past. Wang Defu? The pilot was stunned. What kind of insane performance was this? At such high speeds, and still perform such agile maneuvers? Is this truly a fighter jet developed with current human technology? At this moment, he felt his entire worldview had been shattered. At that moment, a cannon launcher suddenly activated above the Wind Shadow fighter's cockpit. No, no! The F-35 pilot screamed in utter disbelief, sensing death in the air. The next second, the air cannon unleashed a furious barrage of over 3,000 rounds per minute toward his position. Drenched in sweat, he frantically maneuvered the fighter to evade. But the barrage was too dense. Soon, the nose was hit, spewing thick, acrid smoke. Beep! The electronic instrument panel sounded an alarm. One by one, the buttons and lights on the control panel began to fail. He sank into despair, slumping in the cockpit. Collapse and wait for death. Chapter 107, an expensive fireworks display. At that very moment, such scenes were unfolding repeatedly across various airspaces. Wherever the foaming fighters appeared, before long, an F-35 fighter would plummet from the sky due to various malfunctions. The battle had barely lasted half an hour. The number of F-35s destroyed had already reached a staggering dozen or more. Keep in mind, these aren't cheap cabbages. They were the world's most advanced fifth-generation fighters. Countless nations have sought to purchase these fighters, yet the United States refuses to sell them. This represents the formidable firepower capable of obliterating a small nation. Yet now, it lies in utter disarray. Had such an outcome been predicted before the war began, no one would have believed it. Yet it happened utterly unbelievable. As for the economy, another direct loss of over $1 billion. Obama nearly choked on his own blood at the sight of this outcome. The entire high command was flushed crimson. The Air Force commander sat with a grim expression, saying nothing. After all, he had already proposed withdrawing the troops. It was this group who acted on their own initiative, insisting on continuing the fight. No matter how great the loss, it's no longer his concern. Isn't our Air Force the world's best? How could this have happened? Havid turned to the Air Force commander, his tone sharp with accusation. In modern warfare, air superiority is paramount. Possessing air superiority means controlling the skies of this war. The Lighthouse Nation understands this well. Thus, their annual expenditure in this domain reaches astronomical figures. Such exorbitant military expenditures. Yet it leaves them utterly disoriented in combat. He cannot accept this, absolutely cannot. The F-35 is absolutely not weak. Hearing this, the Air Force commander grew indignant. The F-35 fighter is more than capable of dominating the world. It outclasses nearly every other fighter jet. The reason we suffered this defeat is because their fighter is simply too advanced. They've even developed that game-changing electromagnetic pulse technology. We had no chance whatsoever. You, Harwood, hadn't expected such unapologetic arrogance. You owe me an explanation. I only know you once claimed the F-35 was invincible. Enough. The Air Force commander, thoroughly enraged, yanked off his cap, filling the entire Black House with a palpable tension. The high-ranking officials lost all interest in watching the battle unfold. Their moods were incredibly complex. If you believe I'm unfit for this job or that this incident stems from my negligence, then I'll resign. With that, the Air Force commander strode out in front of everyone. He had seen it clearly. This group of shameless individuals had caused the defeat in this war through their own carelessness and blindness. Yet they would never take the blame themselves. Instead, they would find someone to shoulder all the blame for them. He had no intention of taking the fall for these fools. With the departure of the Air Force Commander-in-Chief, the atmosphere in the Black Palace Hall completely erupted. Some high-ranking officials, watching the relentless destruction of F-35s, had already lost their composure. Especially the representatives from the Italian side. They simply couldn't accept it. The Kingdom of Yemen possesses such formidable fighter jets. This is unreasonable and unscientific. Obama gritted his teeth and immediately ordered, by any means necessary, you must shoot down one enemy fighter today. Then find a way to retrieve the data. We need to conduct a comprehensive analysis of this fighter jet. At this point, this was the best solution. If we can obtain the enemy fighters' data, they could build even more formidable fighters. Compared to that, losing over 30 F-35s is entirely acceptable. Everyone turned to look at Obama. Their mouths opened and closed, but no words came out. The remaining 20 or so F-35s were scattered across different airspace sectors. When the order to fight to the death came, the pilots' expressions turned despairing. They could only pilot their fighters deeper into the battlefield, engaging in a high-stakes game of cat and mouse with the Fengying fighters. Boom! Suddenly, a deafening explosion erupted as another F-35 was shot down without warning. The shadow of death. It enveloped everyone, sending chills down their spines. As members of the Lighthouse Nation's Air Force, they had once believed this was their good fortune. For no other nation's Air Force in the world could rival theirs. Wherever they went, they held absolute air superiority and the power to execute their enemies. They never imagined the tables would turn. They had become the ones being toyed with, watching their allies fall one after another. While the radar remained as unresponsive as if asleep, they pounded the radar with punch after punch. Air combat without radar is like a man without eyes. This was a battle with no suspense. 10 wind shadow fighters, like ghostly hunters, preying on their victims with utter abandon. Zhang Ye's side had just received a call from the Dragon Nation. Upon learning of the ongoing dogfight, the other party nearly choked on their own heart. What? You're not joking, right? Zhao Shang's eyes widened. Yes, but don't worry. I can handle it. They're a joint force from the Lighthouse Nation in Yisili, deploying around 30 F-35s. Oh, and Zhang Yi remembered something. The F-35 fighter data Dragon Nation would be very interested in that. Upon learning Zhang Yi's thoughts, he became visibly excited. Great. If we can record or retrieve some data, that'd be ideal. We'll owe you one for this. Dragon Nation's primary adversary remains the Lighthouse Nation. With F-35 data in hand, why would we ever need to worry about not being able to handle the F-35 in the future? They'd poured immense effort into understanding the F-35 before, even paying exorbitant prices to acquire it. But they came up empty-handed. No need to talk about favors or obligations, we're friends. Consider it a small gift. Zhang Yi smiled. Zhao Shang reminded him, by the way, you must be extremely cautious over there. Don't underestimate the enemy. Also, if you need any help, just let me know. I'll arrange for the nearest combat units to rush over. Understood. Zhang Yi appreciated the thought. But help? Honestly, it won't be needed. Given the current state of the battle, just landing a single hit on the Wind Shadow fighter would count as a win for them. Alright, let's wrap this up quickly. We need to head to Longboy as soon as possible, other matters await. He hung up. Zhang Yi issued the order for a swift engagement. The Wind Shadow fighter pilot understood and dove the aircraft, teleporting over 10 kilometers. The F-35 pilots even heard the sonic booms from outside. They knew exactly what those sounds meant. They were coming from the Wind Shadow fighters. Yet the radar remained completely silent. For a moment, they doubted whether they were dreaming. If only it were. At least they would wake up eventually. But reality was brutal. 10 Wind Shadow fighters had already surrounded and destroyed over 20 F-35s from multiple directions. Fire. Coordination complete. The firing command crackled through the communicator. 10 Typhoon fighter jets simultaneously launched missiles. A grand and costly fireworks display unfolds in the sky. Chapter 108, Heartsing's top secret leaked. Within a mere 10 seconds. Across various airspace sectors, flames erupted from F-35 explosions. Thick smoke billowed across the scene. Every inch reeked of money. Fortunately, this time the Lighthouse Nation deployed F-35s instead of their F-22s. Otherwise, Zhang Yi truly believed they'd be crying their eyes out. Because while the F-22 and F-35 belong to the same generation of fighters, the F-22 is far more expensive to produce and outperforms the F-35 in certain aspects. It's just too expensive. The Lighthouse Nation was convinced that neither the Dragon Nation nor the Big Goose could develop fighters superior to their own. Therefore, they shut down the F-22 production line 3 years ago. The F-35 can be rebuilt if lost, but once the F-22 is gone, it's truly gone. Never mind. Anyway, both the F-35 and F-22 are the Beacon Nation's prized possessions. Zhang Yi stared at the screen. He could practically see the Lighthouse Nation's people gnashing their teeth in frustration. Brilliant. Absolutely spectacular. After a volley of fire, Of the 20-odd F-35s, only a handful had managed to slip through. Jiang Yi ordered one intact aircraft to be preserved, to bring its data back to the Dragon Nation. Jiang Yi, however, couldn't care less about F-35 data. Nonsense. With the Phonying fighter in hand, what use was this junk? Even the Caliban fighter is several times more capable than the F-35. Don't even get me started on the upgraded Phonying. The Lighthouse Nation knows full well this battle is hopeless. They've been utterly defeated. Gradually realizing how utterly preposterous their initial plan to decapitate Jiang Yi had been, they urgently ordered the remaining fighters to withdraw immediately. They aimed to minimize losses. Every single aircraft they could save counted. But they had once again overestimated themselves. Escaping the Wind Shadow fighters was nearly impossible. After swiftly dispatching several, 10 Wind Shadow fighters fixed their sights on the last one. They forced it from all directions, leaving it no choice but to head in the opposite direction of Lighthouse Nation. Take your time. Once the lighthouse runs out of fuel, it'll stop on its own. The passenger plane gradually drifted away from the battlefield. Jiang Yi used the communicator to notify the Wind Shadow fighter pilots. Next, Jiang Yi no longer needed to intervene. Let them slowly run out of fuel. Once the enemy's fuel is depleted, we'll force them to stop. Of course, that was the ideal scenario. After forcing them to stop, securing an intact, undamaged F-35, the Dragon Nation would undoubtedly gain significant insights from studying it. In the worst-case scenario, Jiang Yi will transmit the combat data from this engagement, and the Dragon Nation will still gain valuable insights. As the Lighthouse Nation's trump card. This time, the Lighthouse Nation has suffered heavy losses and faces the risk of classified information leaks. Beacon Nation. Report. Only one of our fighter jets remains operational, the rest have been destroyed. The losses are catastrophic. This outcome caused Obama to lose his footing, crashing to the floor with a thud. The other high-ranking officials, their minds went blank. Blank. At that moment, news arrived that plunged them into even deeper despair. It seemed the enemy had no intention of shooting down our last fighter jet, but rather aimed to force it to land. Obama leaped to his feet. His spirits instantly lifted. What did you say? They seem to be trying to force our last F-35 to land, not shoot it down. Obama was stunned. Not shoot it down, but force it to stop? What does that even mean? Anyone with half a brain can guess what they're up to. No. Even if we have to self-destruct, we can't let them get the F-35's data. Obama issued an emergency order. As their trump card, the F-35 embodies cutting-edge technology. Any leak would spell catastrophic consequences for them. Besides, they knew Jiang Yi was visiting the Dragon Nation this time. Who the classified information would leak to was obvious without even thinking about it. This bastard, playing such dirty tricks. Havid roared. First he orchestrated a decapitation strike to assassinate Jiang Yi. Now he's turning the tables. Accusing others of being underhanded. His true colors are showing. The last F-35 pilot, facing the Wind Shadow fighters closing in from all sides, wore an expression of utter despair. All he could do was pilot his fighter, circling within the trap they had set. This path led only to certain death. At that moment, a voice suddenly crackled over the communicator. Jarif, you are a warrior. Now is the moment your nation needs you. Please take your highest honor and sacrifice yourself bravely like a warrior. We will remember you forever. Jarif slammed his fist onto the control panel. He knew they were sending him to his death. But to die like this? He refused to accept it. He didn't want to die. Jarif, do not hesitate. Have you forgotten the honor of being a warrior? Jarif took a deep breath. Though he didn't want to die, he knew he had no choice. Sacrificing himself was the only option. But at that moment, another voice sounded through the communicator. Stop right there. We won't harm you. We need the F-35 fighter jet data. The speaker, a pilot of the Phonying fighter. The Wind Shadow fighter's prowess lies not only in its flawless radar, but also its formidable electronic intrusion capabilities. Yes. He directly hacked into the F-35's communication system and spoke directly to the pilot. Knowing he had a chance to survive, the driver froze. After all, no one wants to die. In that moment, the primal human desire for survival made him cast everything else aside. What about a warrior's honor? That's because it wasn't you who was dying. When death comes knocking at your door, you might just panic even more than he did. To hell with warrior's honor. To hell with national honor. Only one thought filled his mind. Stay alive. He began his descent, searching for a place to crash land. Looks like they've agreed. Alpha felt relieved. Yes. Jiang Yi set down his wineglass, stood up, and stretched his limbs. As the saying goes, those who recognize the times are the wise. Many overlook humanity's fear of death. This F-35 will be transported back to Yamen territory first, then we'll notify Longwei to come collect it. Jiang Yi ordered. Yes. Alpha stepped away from Jiang Yi and began making calls to various parties. The Lighthouse Nation panicked once more. What the hell is this guy trying to do? Why isn't he following orders and going to his death? Havid's face turned green. He urgently grabbed his communicator and shouted at the pilot. What are you doing? Have you forgotten the honor of being a warrior? Where's your resolve? Are you really going to be a coward? FCK. 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 Yet the only response was silence. The pilot shut off the comms system and proceeded to land the F-35 on his own. As the communication ceased, the hearts of all the Lighthouse Nation's high-ranking officials sank completely. It's over. Everything is lost. This battle not only resulted in the loss of numerous F-35